Choosing your competition is yet another important consideration that contributes to a startup's entrepreneurial strategy. So today we'll be looking at another company that you may remember from the textbook called Stitch Fix. This was a company founded in 2011 by Katrina Lake, and she set out to eliminate the time-consuming and inconvenient aspects of clothing shopping. She founded an artificial intelligence startup that used the fashion likes of individual users on social media with detailed information of their body type and fit preferences to predict a set of clothing that they would want. Stitch Fix customers would then be sent, without doing any shopping or selection, a clothing item at regular intervals. If the customers didn't like any of their select pieces, they could easily return them, and Stitch Fix's algorithm was actually so good that returns were pretty rare. So after developing such an effective and valuable algorithm, Lake had to determine the best way to bring her service to market. And now, I'll be walking you through an exercise that would have facilitated that process years ago. We'll start by examining the differences between competition and collaboration for this venture. On the competition side of things, we'll identify potential competitors who would be impacted by the implementation of the venture's idea and their likely response. Because Stitch Fix's proprietary algorithm deals with clothing selection, the first competitor that comes to mind is a personal shopper or stylist that actually goes out and handpicks clothing for their clients. Competition can also come from department stores or clothing retail brands that have online offerings and recommend different clothing items to online shoppers. And more subtle but equally important competitors in the clothing industry are lesser known clothing retailers, order by mail clothing catalogs, and shopping television networks like QVC. And now that we've created a list of potential competitors, it's important to gauge how each could respond to Stitch Fix entering the market. Competitive responses in the clothing industry often take the form of style or product replications, and large incumbent firms tend to partake in anti-competitive behavior like mergers and acquisitions of smaller companies. That said, firms often leverage competitive pricing, sales, and unparalleled customer experiences to slow their competition. On the other hand, competitors in this industry may be limited in their ability to respond quickly because of their dedication to serving an existing customer sector or focus on in-person retail as opposed to online services. So now that we've taken a look at competition, we can move over to collaboration. And here we want to gauge the availability of complementary assets and identify potential partners with unique assets for value creation. So we start by identifying a few essential complementary assets that we need our collaborator to bring to the table. So in order for Stitch Fix to create value effectively, the algorithm needs to be able to source its items from a large clothing selection. And it would also be amazing if a collaborator could offer a reliable inventory management system and delivery infrastructure so that Stitch Fix can just worry about creating the algorithm while the collaborator worries about the back end. Another added plus would be if a collaborator already has a large pre-existing pool of customers for Stitch Fix to source from. So now that we've established what we're looking for from a potential collaborator, we can actually begin examining different partners. And I'll start with the department store. We'll go with Macy's. And we'll say that Macy's offers value to the venture by providing clothing, customers, and an inventory or delivery management system. And Macy's might be interested in partnering with Stitch Fix because the venture could offer online customers individualized clothing recommendations, and this could increase Macy's online sales and ultimately decrease the number of items that are returned. As you go through this section, really make sure that the partnerships that you are selecting offer value to both collaborators because these are the partnerships that are most valuable long term. And two additional potential partnerships that we believed fell into that camp were with unknown retailers and clothing catalogs. So we challenge you to go through and determine what Stitch Fix stands to gain from these potential partnerships and what a partner could gain. So now that we've examined whom to compete with, now it's time to move forward to control versus execution and determine how to compete. Our competitive strategy can be oriented towards control or execution, so it's really important to determine which path will be most effective long term. So if we orient ourselves towards control, our main goal will be to limit the core idea's risk of imitation. The part of the core idea most susceptible to replication by others would be Stitch Fix's proprietary clothing selection algorithm, because competitors can try to make their own algorithm. But it's important to note that this may be easier said than done. Stitch Fix's talented team has already created one of the best algorithms available, and they clearly have unparalleled knowledge and skills in this area. So replicating something that is as high performance as what Stitch Fix already has will be time consuming and certainly a challenge. And if we move forward to execution, we notice that this orientation tends to be more focused on getting ahead and staying ahead of our competitors, as opposed to controlling our idea or asset. So if Stitch Fix focuses on execution, we can note that execution and rapid iteration in the market will allow the venture to learn and or improve upon its algorithm's performance with customers. And that being said, the venture can get ahead and stay ahead of its competitors because Stitch Fix's team has already gotten a head start with learning. And it will really take competitors, as I've said previously, a long time to develop a similar skill set. It's also important to note that executing quickly generally requires a few key resources and capabilities. And in Stitch Fix's case, this would include a talented team to continue improving upon the already great algorithm, a large and diverse customer population that Stitch Fix could learn from, and a large and diverse clothing supply to continue referencing selections from. So that wraps up section 2 of the exercise, and it gives us a clearer picture of different ways that we can go about competing. So now we can move forward to section 3, where we'll narrow and investigate our options through commitment-free research and exploration. So we'll start by choosing whether we want to compete or collaborate, and we'll investigate the viability of our competitive option or our potential partner. So for this example, I'll say that department stores are a viable partner that can be further investigated by researching and developing a list of stores that really offer the assets that we've listed above. As you'll remember, we want someone that has a large clothing selection for customers, reliable inventory management systems and delivery infrastructure, and a large pre-existing pool of customers if possible. And once a few potential partners are identified, Stitch Fix can go ahead and begin establishing relationships to determine who is most interested and who will likely be the most compatible. Moving to our next box, we'll examine the viability of partnerships in this industry and try to determine why they might fail or succeed. Luckily for us, partnerships in the clothing industry tend to succeed because each party will usually have a set of assets or skills that they can contribute to the collaboration. In our case, it's pretty clear that Stitch Fix would provide the convenient, unique customer experience, while collaborators would focus on clothing inventory and delivery logistics. And our last box here investigates the irreversibility of our choices above. Choosing to collaborate is likely an irreversible choice in this context because of contractual obligations and a responsibility to keep collaborators' best interests in mind. For Stitch Fix, this likely means that pursuing a partnership with one retail brand or department store will eliminate the possibilities of working with someone else now or in the future. So it's really important to consider all of the consequences of pursuing a partnership with any particular party. That wraps up section 3 of the exercise, and now, having completed this, we have a clear picture of some of the competitive choices that Lake could have considered in 2011. It's important to remember that entrepreneurs do not have the luxury of choosing not to compete, but our decisions regarding with whom and how to compete can create significantly more manageable competitive landscapes. Being that choosing your competition is so essential to a venture's overall success, we really encourage you to carefully consider all avenues of competition that the venture can explore. And I really hope that this video facilitates that process for you.